The more we drink this morning, the more we can let you drink tonight. So get into the bar and enjoy that. Also, the party tonight, we've got Rev Rance DJing and Whitey Cracker, so some nerdcore and lots of debauchery and some open bar stuff, so that'll be a good time. We're going to have some raffle prizes at the beginning of the party. I think that starts at 9 p.m., so don't be too late. Also, follow us at CircleCityCon on Twitter so you can get the, all the swanky stuff that we talk about, all the trash we talk about during the day, and the news and announcements for changes. And also, as you haven't noticed, speakers have these cool little tickets here, so make sure you engage during the talks, and these are available for some more swag right outside the doors here at the registration desk. So without further ado, we've got Wick today. We're talking about gitdigger. So let's see what that's all about and make some word lists. Woo. All right.
Am I the only one still half asleep? No. Can everybody hear me okay? Perfect. So I wasn't the first to make word lists. I'm sure most of you probably have. There's been word lists made from Wikipedia, websites, the Rock You famous word lists. I also wasn't the first to go looking through source code repositories. Malvatuna, I apologize if I'm pronouncing that wrong, they did a blog post a couple years ago about how they went through a bunch of SVNs and pulled out all the directory structures, the file names, and they were using that to brute force websites. So they had a ton of projects, they came up with a ton of words, and I saw this online and thought, hey, that's kind of a good idea. So the only problem is you need to find a friendly service, one that's not going to make you type in a CAPTCHA every 5 minutes, something that you don't have to pay to get access for. So this is how the project started for me. At 2 a.m. on an IRC channel, somebody posted the link to the Malvatuna blog post. And, I thought it was nice. A couple other people thought it was awesome. And I'm like, and Mubix was like, well, somebody should do this with Bitbucket or GitHub. And this is 2 a.m. and I'm like, I can do that in like 30 minutes and be done. It would be awesome. So that started down here we go, 30 minutes. I can do this sleep deprived. So here's my first shot of it. My first thought is looking at how do I get access to all the repositories? How do I find them? So my first thought was, well, let's just hit up all the top repositories, get the authors, and kind of funnel through all their repositories and trickle out. Not knowing that there was an API at 2 in the morning, I couldn't really find hey, here's all the repositories that we're hosting. So here we have some fun with Python, using some basic Python, very simple database. I just started going through all the top repositories and cloning everything. So went to bed, woke up, now I have all these repositories. What in the world am I going to do with these? So then I had the fun challenge of, okay, I have all these repositories. I need to walk through all the directories, all the names, a lot of sort, grep, and awk to clean things up, pulling passwords out. I spent an insane amount of time. I think it's on the next slide. I think it was about 17 hours going through manual review to pull out all the usernames, all the passwords, all the email addresses that I could find. Yeah, so after 17 hours, manual kung fu, I had a nice set of word lists, and they were kind of cool. But it was taking too long. 17 hours is a long time to do anything. So I started looking at how can I speed this up and make this more productive. I started this, I now want everything. So I did some research and I found Better Walk versus OS Walk. There's some magical numbers there at the bottom. I didn't research their speed improvements to find out if it's true. They said it was faster, so I'm like, okay, let's use that instead. So my initial thoughts after this first setup was, okay, I have all the word lists. They were perfect. They were very useful. All my friends thought they were awesome. The bad news is I only had the top repositories. SQLite was insanely slow, and nobody wants to do manual labor this day and age. And my hard drive was now full. I could barely boot my computer. So let's get a little more serious with this project. First problem, figuring out my storage. So first come to mind Bicasa. At the time I started this, it was $99 a year. They had built-in indexing, so it was easy to search through all the files, unlimited storage. But at the time, they only had a Windows client. I crashed it every 5 minutes trying to do a rsync of the files, and they encrypted everything on the fly. So it was extremely slow to transfer all this data to their service. So I'm like, okay, well, what I really need is a NAS. It's awesome, it's local, it's going to be super fast. I can write to it from one machine, I can process the files from the other, but they were insanely expensive. I've already had 3 terabytes of data, so just going out to a Best Buy and getting a 4 terabyte NAS just wasn't going to do. So here's my solution. I had a ton of USB drives. There's 10 terabytes of storage right there. So I would give each one a unique volume name. I stored that in the database, so if I ever wanted to go back and reference a file, I had to find that drive, plug it in. I actually bought 5 different USB 2.0 and 3.0 caddies and had all these drives sticking out of my main computer while I was working on this. Not the most elegant solution, but I've gotten some feedback from some friends, a local hacker group, Nova Hackers, and they donated some hard drive space to help me keep this going. So now what I have is a glorified Python wget process at this time. It goes, it looks, and then it just clones. So how can I get this better? It's like, well, GitHub has an API. Wish I knew about that when I started. So here's what they give you if you're not familiar. You can make a call. They'll return everything about the public repositories that they're hosting. So this made it a lot easier to go through, parse, multi-thread, and just start cloning like crazy. So then I ran into database problems. So I went to MySQL. A lot of people have asked me why I didn't use Postgres. Well, I don't really know Postgres. It might be faster, it might be better for this project. I just didn't know it at the time. So now let's tie everything together. So my upgrades, I've added 2 modes to my code. So now it can download and process multi-threaded at the same time. I've have scripts that will go through and add all the usernames and emails and passwords directly into a database and keep counts. And I've made the database structure a bit more complicated than what I was using before. So here we go. I start it in a downloader mode. It goes out, looks for repositories, dumps the names, downloads the repositories, rinse and repeat. And by the way, if anybody has any questions, just toss them out at me, kind of informal. So here's the process that I ended up with. It's kind of a little tricky to follow. So I have the processor that's now looking at the repositories. It is dumping them into MySQL. And that part's kind of, all the black is kind of completely automated, runs 24/7, don't have to touch it. It can auto pull out email addresses based on some regex and heuristics. The problem now is pulling out the usernames and password, because every code base uses them different. There's different ways to say, hey, this is a static key. So I have a bunch of regex that I grep through. I have to manually clean things up and then add it to my database. And then I now have a shell script that'll just dump and create the word list for me in a matter of minutes and not 17 hours. So here's the updated results. I now have all of the public repositories. If it's there, I'm downloading it. I'm generating the word list in minutes instead of hours, and I'm able to store the data all over multiple hard drives because I'm too cheap and can't afford a giant NAS with 30 terabytes. The bad news, I still have to do a lot of manual labor to pull out these usernames and passwords, and I now have tons and tons of data and no backups for it. So here's the big data drinking game. If you want the data, I'll sell it to you. No. Okay, done. Here's some of the roundup. Every good talk needs a bunch of numbers. I keep a count. So every time, did everybody hear his question? The question was, if I find multiple usernames and passwords, do I concat them? How do I store them? So what I do is I look and see if it's already in the database, and then I just add a +1 to it. So I make sure that it's, I try and keep everything case sensitive. And then once it's in the word list, you can manipulate that with grep and sed and get whatever in the world you want out of it. So here's some of the numbers that I had. You can see how many times Bob was used as a username, or admin, and there's an insane amount of people using password for their password. So there's some pretty bar graphs. So you can kind of see how much of each item I have in the database. Toss that in there. Every good talk needs to have a graphic of a bar graph. So now here's the fun stuff, the stuff that you might care about. What can we do with these word lists? Well, we can do forced browsing on websites. We can generate default password lists. We can go through and brute force all the static salts to generate, say, MySQL passwords. You can look inside the exception PSP file. Anybody look inside that file when they find it? That's where you'll find a bunch of error codes that says, hey, you might not be able to access this, but this is over here, kind of thing. Like maybe a database error. File PHP, that's always fun, normally used to download files. And I don't know why, but a lot of people put their password inside of password.txt file and then either reference it from PHP or they just leave it there in case they forget what the password is. So of course you can feed these lists into burp, do some forced browsing. Some of the obvious stuff, you can find auth keys for people's services. They may put them in there and then go, oh crap. Anybody in here ever put something on GitHub and then go, oh crap, remove it and then do a push? I think, oh, you're lying. I bet some of you have done it. So they'll do a push to fix it, but they won't wipe out the whole repository, so there's still a copy of that. So how real world is this stuff? So somebody found a bunch of secret keys on GitHub. Here's a gentleman that emailed thousand users, said, hey, your tokens on GitHub, you probably shouldn't be there. I'm not going to do that because I'm extremely lazy and not that nice. So the not so obvious stuff that I'd like to do with this data, I'd like to parse through all the images and OC out the words. Maybe somebody took a picture of their Post-it note password and put it up there. Go through all the Git revision history. Looking for vulnerabilities would be a huge fun one to go through. Parsing the Git ignore and putting that into something that I can then start to force browse on websites, and verifying directories. So all kinds of stuff you can do with that. So grepping out all the email addresses, that is going to be very beneficial for social engineering attacks. Right now, I don't post the full email address list. I just put the usernames up there, just because I don't want some spammer to get the list. Let them do their own work. I like to start parsing out all the database files that I find. So now I'm just giving a bunch of people a ton of ideas. That is the general end of the talk. The word lists that I have are at that location. There's actually a git recon Python script up there that you can feed it a username, and it'll generate a mini list of this word of somebody's repo. So say you're attacking somebody who's, they work at a specific company. You can run git recon. It will go through all their repositories and generate these lists for you. So it's more targeted. So any questions? I'm estimating 3 terabytes right now. Based on the number of repositories I have, I've got between 15 and 20. Yeah, that's the actual Git clones with all the revision history and all that stuff. Yes. I actually don't know off the top of my head. Several megabytes, 500 plus. Right now, if I did a fresh dump tonight, it would probably be over a gig for everything that I'm pulling out. Yes. I've been doing this project for 3 years now. So, and I've been doing all of this from my house with a lowly DSL modem. I've been bumped from GitHub twice. I've not had a single call from my ISP. One of the fun things that I've been doing is I've been working with everybody familiar with Bro IDS. I've been working with some of the Bro guys and generating hashes of all my files, and they've wrote some code around it. So if you're looking at your IDS and you see a PHP file fly by, it goes, okay, that's from WordPress version 2, and here's where it's stashed. So, it might not be useful for, your normal web browsers, but if somebody's downloading an attack Python script or something from GitHub, you're going to see it come across the wire. You're going to know the hash, and Bro will tell you, this is what it is. This is the version. This is what you got on your network. So I've been working with them on the back end a little bit to try and develop that. The one of the problems with working with this amount of data is it just takes so much time to do anything with it. I wasn't smart enough to keep hashes originally, so that when I started working with Bro, I had to write some threaded code that went back through and started generating hashes and storing them in the database. I've played with AWS instances. That gets expensive quick. I've played with Dispy, which is a Python distributed script. So I've had friends set up boxes where I can force, okay, here's a repo, you download it, process it, give me the results of your processing, and then I'll download it myself later to save. So I can start getting results without having the actual data in storage. I found people's emails that were the message that are pulled out of Outlook and stuff, the original raw messages. I've found people's porn collections. There is so much stuff up there that shouldn't be up there. It's not even funny. So I'm not sure where I'm at on time, but is there any other questions, comments? No? Then that's it. Thank you guys for coming to the Dave Kennedy Overflow Room. Enjoy the rest of your con.